when is enough enough? How much can the Strongblock token fall until we potentially hit break even? That's the question of this video. There are several nice calculations in here. And the fundamental question is it that bad that the token price is actually going down? Because in the end, we've got our node, right? It produces regular income. We simply have to wait long enough until we recoup that initial investment of 10 Strong tokens in order to set up that node. Now, I'm personally not invested into Strong. I have made my videos on Strong quite a while back. Actually, my very first video on Strong was just over here when we hit the $1,200 per token. It's one of the most viewed videos on this channel. So that will be at the outro of this video here. Now we're gonna answer the question, had you bought over here? Or had you bought over here? Or maybe just since the beginning of the year? How bad is that decline really? How much decline can you actually stomach to still be break even? And in order to answer this, I have written the following calculator. You can download this calculator for free in the video description. I do have my premium content here at thebitcoinstrategy.com, but this is such a simple Excel sheet that I don't think it makes sense to put this behind the paywall. So the question here is, when you buy one node and you've got an initial setup price for this, right? 10 Strongs per node, how much decline in the price can you endure to still get break even? So let's say the price doesn't decline at all, which is relatively unrealistic, right, given the history. Then we simply over time make nice passive income. That's the reason why people get into the project, right? But the problem is that money has to come from somewhere, right? The problem is tokenomics. Old investors get paid out by new investors' money. And so given that there are more and more nodes that produce an ever increasing number of Strong tokens that hit the market, we in the end, over the very long term, see a decline, right? The selling pressure takes over. Now, how much decline can we endure? How bad is this person really off that bought here at, say, 1,200? They definitely didn't lose 90% of their money, right? Because they got all those rewards. How much would they actually have lost? Now, for this calculator, the first important number is how many Strongs do we actually get per day? This is not exactly 0.1 Strong per day. It's slightly less. We can see this here in Dune Analytics. So over here, we've got the ROI days. So how many days does it really take in order to recoup one Strong node? This ROI days is simply just denominated in Strong tokens, right? So currently we are looking at roughly 109 days to get those Strong back. And so that's what I've entered over here. Now let's first work with a very simple assumption. Let's say we claim every day, and let's also simplify by saying we don't have any gas fees for claiming those rewards and for selling them against a stablecoin, which is unrealistic, but we will add this later. We simply want to see how this calculation changes based on those parameters. So let's look at this poor soul over here that bought for 1,200. This happened at the end of October 2021. So we had 2 months in 2021 and then now 3.5 months in 2022. So in total, we are looking at roughly 5.5 months and 30 days per month. So 165 days, roughly. We don't have to be too precise here. And so in 165 days, the price of Strong declined to $147. So we want to look at the price in 165 days. Let's quickly get this to the top. So that's over here. And now let's play around with the decline per day parameter to see when we actually get to our $147. So it declined more than 1%, more than 1.1%, less than 1.3% though. And so the answer lies around 1.26% per day. This is the pace at which Strongblock has declined since its peak. And so if that person would never pay any gas fees, and if they claimed their rewards every day, then so far they would have made let's highlight all of this until row 165. That person would have made $7,562.61 from an initial investment that's 12,000, right? So this is how that looks like. The graph here shows an entire year. So note how this reward is flattening out over time, right? Because the price per strong continuously declines. That's the idea of the model. If you think that is a valid idea or not is outside of the scope of this video. We simply want to find out how much decline can we potentially digest. Now let's toy around with higher declines, which didn't happen, but simply for the sake of argument. Let's look at 2% decline per day. What we notice is that the strong price will go really, really low, right? It will go to $1 in the end after 1 year. And thus the claimable reward will also drop drastically. So that means at a certain point in time, if the decline accelerates too quickly, we can pretty much wait indefinitely to recoup our losses. This will not happen. We have a maximum pain threshold in order to get our money back. We can't decline too quickly. Once we decline too quickly, there is no way to actually get this money back. Another way to look at this is even if the decline is slower but consistent, at some point in time, this curve here becomes so horizontal that any additional claims are not really worth it anymore, right? Especially after gas fees. So you need to make sure that when you get into Strongblock or when you reinvest your nodes, that you get a rough grasp of how much the price might potentially decline in the future, if you're even that pessimistic to think that it will. Now let's look at 1 year and see what kind of a decline we can actually digest. So let's say we are at 0.9%, then we are almost already break even. If we extend this calculator, which we can easily do, right? Let's just extend this by another year. So copy paste this over all the way to 730 roughly. Let's do that. And let's also get our final price or final profit loss after 2 years. So that's the last value over here in the I column. So that would have still given us some kind of a profit, right? Not a huge profit because you're talking here 12,000 US dollars. So in the end, you would have only gotten $106 return in the end, but still at least a profit. This seems to be somewhat the maximum decline you can endure. So when we now look at the 165 data point, right? That's the time from the peak to today. If Strongblock was healthy, then the current price should have been at least 270. So given that we are currently below $270 per strong token, we are looking at a decline that's too fast to be recouped. Now, this is definitely the worst case, right? Not everybody bought over here, but let's also not assume that we are buying when prices are still rising, right? We are somewhat in a bear trend now. The momentum has shifted. Let's try to be somewhat flattering here and say we bought this bottom. Would you then be at least in profits? So let's say we start with 405 US. So that's our initial price. And this is the middle of December of last year. So now we are a bit beyond the middle of February. So let's just work with, say, 95 days or so. That should be roughly correct. 95 days with a break-even decline after 2 years, right? The 0.9%. We would be now at $172 per strong. Currently, we are below this. So even though you bought this bottom over here in this overall bearish momentum, you still would be in the red, or at least you would be on track to stay in the red in case we decline at this same continued rate. So of course you haven't yet recouped your money, right? That's not the point. The point is that if we assume that the momentum cannot turn around anymore for Strongblock because there are simply too many nodes that get all these strong rewards that push all of this supply in the market, if you assume that this dynamic will continue to depress the price, then even if you timed this perfectly and you buy the dip at the right time, you would still over the long term not be able to recoup. So let's actually look at the decline that we so far faced. So in this 95 days or so, let's bring this value up and try to get to 147. So we are currently declining at a pace of 1.06%, and 0.9% is the break even after 2 years, given we do not have any gas fees. And now this is where the whole calculation gets potentially worse. So let's say you are optimistic. Let's say we are not going to decline at this pace anymore, right? At more than 0.9%. Let's say we suddenly decline only by half of the pace, right? Let's say we go by 0.5% decline, which would be nice, right? But let's now also assume that we've got gas fees. Let's maybe claim every 30 days, and let's have gas fees of say 80 US. I think 80 is pretty fair. You have the claiming, you also have the selling. Probably in the end it's a bit higher, but if you optimize this somewhat by time of the day or so, maybe this is achievable. So that's the gas fee for claiming and selling. And what you can use this calculator for, if you are invested in Strongblock, you can optimize your frequency of claiming, right? So let's say you would claim every day. Of course, you're losing a lot. Let's say you claim every 7 days. Then you might stop claiming at some point in time, right? Because your rewards, they don't really outpace that much the gas fees. Once you claim a bit less frequently, so let's say every 2 weeks, you can make potentially a bit more money. But this is a trade-off between how quickly does the strong price decline versus how much gas fees do you actually pay. So when you only claim, say, every 90 days, then you actually do not maximize your profits because the decline works against you. If you claim too often, then you also don't maximize. So you have to find the sweet spot of when you actually want to claim based on how much you pay in gas versus how quickly you expect the token to decline in the future. So in this case, with 0.5%, maybe the optimal claiming rate is somewhere around 45 days or so. That seems to be relatively optimal. So if you use this kind of parameters, right, and you look now at 0.9%, then of course you don't have a good outcome over here. So after gas fees, you probably need a decline that's even slower. So the break even might be somewhere around 0.6 or so. So 0.6% daily decline. What does this actually mean per year? Let's maybe just for the sake of it, see what kind of decline per month does this actually translate into. We are then looking at 1 minus this decline per day to the power of, let's say, 30 days, then minus 1. That's a monthly decline of 16.5%. I will color code this slightly differently because this is a result. This is not an input. And let's also look at the decline per year. So that's the same formula to the power of 365. So a loss of 89%. So the optimistic case here, right? The optimistic case that barely gets you break even after gas fees would be a decline of strong by 89% in a year. Or in other words, a price of $16 per strong token. My hunch is, given the tokenomics, that we are probably not going to see that optimistic of a price. It sounds crazy, but given the dynamics, if I had to bet, do I think that the strong token will be above or below $16 1 year from now? I'd say it's very likely to be below that. If it's not, if it's above $16, then you do make money setting up a node today for those 1,470 US. But as said, the current rate of decline is faster than what you can recoup with your rewards. Even if you bought over here, if it simply continues on that kind of a line, you are going to lose money. But as said, these are if statements, right? This is not necessarily evaluating or a judgment on the project itself. This is no discussion around strong chain, around any kind of fundamentals with different types of nodes, with reward decay, This is the very classic standard node that pays out into infinity, a standard Ethereum node that can be bought for 10 strong and that simply pays a little bit under 0.1 strong per day. So this calculator will be made public simply in the video description below. Feel free to check that out. And if you're interested in more complex calculations in quite advanced backtests for various cryptocurrencies, feel free to check out the premium membership. So that's at thebitcoinstrategy.com. You can sign up either monthly or save 2 months by directly paying for an entire year. So there's all kinds of content, tutorials on how to set up various calculators, even an entire course on technical analysis, on technical indicators. And of course here, the statistics library, where you can download all of those Excel sheets together with tutorials on how to build them. Now, this is my channel ordered by views. The Strongblock video is the most viewed video on this channel. You definitely want to watch it. It has been released at the peak of Strongblock's price. Over there you see a discussion of the tokenomics, why I in the end decided not to invest into Strongblock. So that's this video over here. Don't miss it. It is worth your time. See you in that video and thanks for watching this one. Bye bye.